I want to bring in former U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara, who was fired by President Trump. We have so much to talk about, Preet.
We do.
First, obviously, the big story. Trump's former advisor, Steve Bannon, was indicted for criminal contempt of Congress today by a federal grand jury. He's expected to turn himself in on Monday. What is your reaction?
So I've been predicting it. A lot of people have been predicting it. It's a very unusual thing, as people I'm sure have been pointing out in the last hour or two and before. This is the first time that the DOJ has charged someone with criminal contempt of Congress in something like 38 years. And one of the reasons it's uncommon is that you rarely have a situation where someone has been so defiant of a congressional subpoena and where their claims to privilege or some other reason for not being able to testify are so weak. So I think it was expected. People were losing patience a little bit. It's been only 22 days to bring any kind of criminal case against someone, particularly one that the whole world will be following. You got to make sure that you cross all your T's, dot all your I's. But I think the case is clear. I think it's important both for the case of Steve Bannon and getting information from him, both testimony and documents, but also for sending a message to all the other people who are going to be defiant, who have varying levels of defense to the subpoena. But I think it's an important message to them that the Justice Department means business.
How much do you think this will actually have an impact on the other people in Trump's world who have been subpoenaed, or the committee, the January 6th committee, is trying to get information and testimony from them? Because you can certainly argue that Bannon does not have a claim to executive privilege. At the time, he was a private citizen. He had been out of the White House for years. But Mark Meadows was White House chief of staff at the time. So many of these other individuals worked in the White House at the time. Joe Biden, the president, who actually it's up to in terms of waiving or asserting the executive privilege, has said no for Meadows, for example. But might courts see it differently?
Yeah, look, I think that the different people have different levels of argument that they can make. Among the whole crew, and it worked out this way for a reason, Steve Bannon has the least. He wasn't even in the employ of the executive branch at the time. He was an outside person. He also was completely blanket refusing to come testify. You'll see that Jeffrey Clark, a former DOJ official, basically did what Steve Bannon did, but he did it in a more subtle way. He showed up, showed respect to the committee, invoked privilege at various junctures, answered probably some mundane questions that didn't get them very far. But that's a way of showing respect for the committee and reasonableness in the minds of that person. So someone like Mark Meadows has a better argument, and I think that the committee is going to have to pick and choose. I don't think they're going to make referrals as to every single witness with whom they have some difficulty getting information from. I think they're going to have to pick and choose for precisely the reason that you say, that there's a sliding scale of the arguments they can make. Now, I think most of them have poor arguments, but when you do something like this that is so rare and that's so fraught and so sort of politically charged, the clearer the case you can make, and I think it's very clear in Steve Bannon's case, the better. So you get, folks don't think that they can just betray and defy subpoenas with impunity, but it depends on the person.
But there's nothing. What happens if on Monday Steve Bannon goes to court, he's released on his own recognizance, and then he says to President Trump in a private conversation, look, I did what I did, but now they're threatening to send me to jail. I'm just going to do what Jeffrey Clark did, which is just not be an idiot about it and still not share anything, but show up and tell them that the day of the week is Tuesday and that I have anything they already know, and then assert they can't assert executive privilege, but he can assert his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is I don't think this ends with Steve Bannon ever testifying, does it?
Well, it need not. I mean, the only thing you can do in this case is bring a criminal charge, which the Justice Department has done. Then he gets a fair trial. And then if he gets convicted, he goes to jail for between 1 and 12 months. That doesn't, they don't take you into a courtroom, administer sodium pentothal, and at gunpoint tell you to talk. This is a statute that's designed to incentivize someone to talk and to punish somebody who defies an appropriate subpoena and doesn't talk. It doesn't force the testimony at all. As for the scenario you laid out, it depends on how cute Steve Bannon wants to be. He's already taken the position that he doesn't respect the committee. He doesn't need to turn over any documents or say anything. I think rehabilitating him by being, cute by half, and now coming in and saying, I'll tell you some stuff like my name, rank, and serial number, I don't think it's going to stop the criminal proceeding. And by the way, in the case of Jeffrey Clark, all I'm saying about that is that he's gained some amount of argument that he was respectful to the committee and that a criminal charge is unwarranted. I don't know that it's necessarily not going to happen in Jeffrey Clark's case either. I just think that Steve Bannon played it in a way that almost compelled the Justice Department, upon getting the referral, to bring the criminal charge.
If there is suspicion of criminal activity by Steve Bannon, why can the FBI not just seize his email and see if there are any records? I mean, I guess that's the question I have, because if they don't think that there's actually a possible criminal activity, then what is this all for?
Well, we don't know what documents they have. So yeah, the documents that the committee is seeking from Steve Bannon are things that Steve Bannon has in his possession, presumably electronic and otherwise. But the committee has the power, as I understand it, to subpoena third parties, and that includes documents relating to email records.
No, but I'm talking about not
records.
The committee. I'm talking about like the FBI.
Yeah, no, sure. I mean, the FBI certainly, I don't know what the FBI is doing in that regard. We know that the FBI is seeking and has sought and received thousands and thousands of pages of documents and records and toll records and communications with respect to all sorts of people who have been charged and probably yet uncharged in connection with the January 6th insurrection. So as far as I know, the FBI is seeking and obtaining that kind of information from Steve Bannon and from the people who he used to communicate with.
All right, Preet Bharara, thank you so much.